You have been disrespected before. You know exactly what it feels like. That slow burn in your chest when someone crosses a line you thought was obvious. But here is what no one told you. The disrespect was not the problem. Your response to it was. And there is a man who understood this 500 years ago, who watched kingdoms collapse not from enemy attacks, but from the quiet tolerance of insult. What he discovered will change how you see every relationship you have. His name was Niccolo Machiavelli, and history has been unfair to him. Most people hear that name and think of cruelty. They think of manipulation, cold strategy, ruthless ambition. But Machiavelli was not writing for tyrants. He was writing for survivors. He spent decades watching the political landscape of Renaissance Italy. He watched good rulers lose everything. He watched kind leaders get betrayed by the very people they protected. He watched generous men get eaten alive by those who mistook their generosity for weakness. And after years of observation, he arrived at a conclusion that still cuts to the bone today. Disrespect grows where resistance is absent. That single line holds more psychological truth than most self-help books combined, because it reframes everything. It tells you that disrespect is not random. It is not bad luck. It is not something that simply happens to good people because the world is unfair. Disrespect is permission-based. It requires your cooperation. It needs your silence, your forgiveness without consequence, your willingness to absorb pain rather than confront it. And every single time you choose peace over power, every time you tell yourself it is not worth the argument, you hand someone a map of your weaknesses. They will use it. Not because they are evil, but because human nature gravitates toward what it can get away with. This pattern has a structure, and once you see it, you cannot unsee it. It begins with a small violation. Someone speaks to you dismissively. Someone cancels on you without apology. Someone makes a joke at your expense and watches your face to see if you will push back. You do not push back. You smile. You absorb it. You tell yourself they did not mean it that way. And in that moment, in that single, silent moment, a transaction occurs. You have just established your price. You have communicated what you are willing to accept, and the other person has received that information perfectly. Machiavelli observed this exact mechanism in the courts of Florence. He watched advisors test new rulers with small acts of insubordination, a delayed response to a request, a subtle contradiction in public, a promise made and quietly broken. If the ruler responded immediately, firmly, without cruelty but without hesitation, the testing stopped. Authority was established. Respect followed naturally. But if the ruler hesitated, if he chose diplomacy over directness, if he convinced himself the slight was too small to address, the testing escalated. Every unanswered violation became an invitation for the next one. And within months, the ruler who tolerated small disrespect found himself drowning in large betrayals. The mechanism has not changed in 5 centuries. It operates in your workplace, your friendships, your family, your romantic relationships. The scale is different. The psychology is identical. You are not being disrespected because you are weak. You are being disrespected because you have not yet shown anyone the cost of doing it. And that cost, that is entirely within your control. There is a deeper layer here that most people miss entirely. Good people do not become targets despite their goodness. They become targets because of it, specifically because of how their goodness operates. When you are someone who values harmony, who genuinely cares about others, who would rather absorb pain than inflict it, you develop a particular set of reflexes. You learn to minimize conflict. You learn to explain away bad behavior. You learn to give people the benefit of the doubt long past the point where doubt is reasonable. These are beautiful qualities. In a world of good faith actors, they would serve you perfectly. But we do not live in that world. We live in a world where some people are testing you, consciously or unconsciously, to determine how much they can take before you react. And your kindness, your beautiful, genuine, well-intentioned kindness, reads as an open door. Machiavelli put it bluntly: he who wishes to be good in everything must come to ruin among so many who are not good. That is not cynicism. That is field observation from a man who watched good people get destroyed because they refused to adapt their strategy to the reality in front of them. The adaptation is not becoming cruel. It is becoming clear. clear about what you will accept, clear about what happens when someone crosses that line, clear about the difference between kindness and submission, because kindness with boundaries is strength. Kindness without boundaries is self-destruction wearing a noble mask. Today, we are going to walk through 7 specific behaviors that test your boundaries, 7 forms of disrespect that Machiavelli would have recognized instantly. Each one is a diagnostic tool. Your response to each one determines whether you keep your power or hand it away. Tell me in the comments, which of these patterns have you been tolerating the longest? The lies, the put-downs, the boundary violations? Name the one that has cost you the most. Write it below. Naming it is already the first act of resistance. Subscribe if you want to keep going. What comes next is where the real power shifts. A lie is never small. There is no such thing as a harmless lie directed at you. When someone lies to your face, they are making a calculation. They are weighing the cost of truth against the cost of deception, and they are deciding that deceiving you is cheaper, that you are not worth the discomfort of honesty. That is not a communication failure. That is a respect assessment, and you failed it. Most people catch lies. They feel them. Something in the stomach tightens. The timeline does not add up. The story shifts slightly between tellings. The eyes move differently. The body knows before the mind admits it. But then the reflex kicks in, the peacekeeping reflex. Maybe I misheard. Maybe I'm overreacting. Maybe it is not worth bringing up. Every time you choose that reflex, you send a signal louder than words. You are telling the other person that lying to you works, that there are no consequences, that the path of deception is not only safe, it is rewarded with your continued trust. Machiavelli watched this pattern destroy alliances across Italy. He saw advisors lie to rulers and face no consequences. He saw those same advisors grow bolder with each uncontested lie until the deception became so large it toppled entire governments. The lies only stopped when someone had the courage to name them. Here is what confrontation actually looks like. It is not loud. It is not dramatic. It is devastatingly simple. You look the person in the eye and you say, "That is not true. Here is what actually happened." No emotion, no aggression, just facts presented with calm certainty, and then you watch. Because what happens next tells you everything about that person's character. Honest people who made a mistake will apologize. They will feel the weight of being caught, and they will course correct, because the relationship matters more than the lie. Manipulators will get defensive. They will tell you that you are remembering wrong. They will make you feel unreasonable for noticing. They will turn the confrontation into evidence of your sensitivity rather than their dishonesty. Either way, you win, because now you have information, now you know who you are dealing with. And knowledge, not hope, not wishful thinking, not giving someone the benefit of the doubt for the 15th time. Knowledge is power. Address lies the first time, not the third. Not after you have gathered evidence. The first time. Because every lie you let pass becomes the foundation for the next one. This one hides better than the others. It does not look like disrespect. It looks like honesty. It sounds like concern. It wears the mask of someone who just cares enough to tell you the truth. I am just being real with you. Do not get mad, no offense, but I'm only saying this because I care. Pay attention to how you feel after these conversations. Not what was said, how you feel. If you consistently walk away from someone feeling smaller, more uncertain, more doubtful about your own judgment, that is not honest feedback. That is psychological erosion delivered with a smile. These people are precise. They know exactly where your insecurities live. They know which words will make you question yourself, and they wrap those words in the language of friendship so that you cannot object without looking oversensitive. Machiavelli documented this exact tactic. He wrote about courtiers who would undermine a ruler's confidence through helpful observations, small questions about judgment, gentle suggestions that perhaps the ruler was not seeing the full picture, quiet comments designed to make the target feel dependent on the advisor's perspective. The goal was never to help. The goal was to control. Because a person who doubts themselves is a person who can be steered. Emotional put-downs leave you feeling deflated, defensive, smaller, like something was taken from you in a conversation that was supposed to be helpful. Your gut knows the difference. Trust it. The response is one clear warning. I need you to speak to me with respect. If you have feedback, deliver it constructively. If you cannot do that, this conversation is over. Some people will hear that and adjust. They genuinely did not realize how they sounded, but others will react with hostility. They will call you sensitive. They will say you cannot handle truth. Perfect. Now you know exactly what they were doing, and you can walk away without guilt. Because someone who refuses to speak to you with respect does not deserve access to your inner world. A boundary without enforcement is a suggestion, and suggestions are optional. You can set 1,000 boundaries. You can communicate them with perfect clarity. You can explain them with kindness and patience. But if crossing them costs nothing, they protect nothing. This is where most good people fail. They set the boundary. They feel proud for doing it, and then someone crosses it and they freeze. They did not plan for this part. They thought the communication would be enough. They believed that a reasonable person would simply honor what was asked. Machiavelli had a line for this. Laws without punishment are useless. He was talking about governance. But the principle applies to every human relationship you will ever have. When someone crosses your boundary for the first time, you address it immediately. Not with anger, with clarity. You crossed a line I set. That cannot happen again. Simple, direct, unapologetic. Then you watch their response. An apology and a correction means they respect you enough to adjust. Defensiveness, minimizing, or acting like you are overreacting means they are negotiating, testing whether the boundary is real or performative. If they cross it a second time, the conversation is over. Now it's about action. You reduce access. You create distance. The degree of distance matches the degree of violation. But there must be a consequence. Something must change. Something must cost them. This will feel uncomfortable. You will feel guilty. You will wonder if you are being too harsh. You are not. You are showing someone what you are worth. And people who cannot meet that standard do not belong in your inner circle. When someone wastes your time repeatedly, they are not being careless. They are ranking you. Watch the people in your life who are always late, always canceling, always promising and never delivering. Notice something interesting. They manage to be on time for things that matter to them. They keep commitments when consequences exist. They respect deadlines when their paycheck depends on it. But with you, there is always traffic, always an emergency, always something that came up. That is not bad luck. That is a status assessment. They have decided, based on your past responses, that your time is the cheapest resource in their life, that rescheduling on you costs nothing. Machiavelli observed that the most effective way to measure where you stand with someone is to watch how they treat your time. Not your birthdays, not your crises, your ordinary Tuesday afternoon, the moments where nothing is at stake except whether they value you enough to show up when they said they would. The second time, you stop making yourself available. You do not explain, you do not negotiate, you simply become less accessible. When they ask why, you tell them the truth. I adjusted my availability based on your reliability. People who value you will feel the weight of that sentence and change their behavior. People who do not will feel inconvenienced and fade away. Let them. This one cuts deeper than most because it carries an audience. Someone corrects you in front of others. Someone makes a joke at your expense in a group setting. Someone undermines your authority, your intelligence, or your decisions while other people are watching. This is not playful banter. This is a power grab performed in front of witnesses. The person doing this knows exactly what they are doing. They are establishing a hierarchy, and they are placing themselves above you in full view of others. Every laugh they get at your expense is a vote of confirmation. Every moment you sit there absorbing it is a public surrender. Machiavelli understood that public perception is the foundation of personal authority. He wrote that reputation, once damaged in public, is nearly impossible to rebuild quietly. The damage is not in the words. The damage is in the audience's memory of your response. If you laugh along, you confirm the hierarchy. If you stay silent, you accept it. If you make excuses later in private, you have already lost, because the public moment is what everyone remembers. The correction must be public and immediate. It does not have to be aggressive. In fact, the calmer you are, the more devastating it lands. You pause, you look directly at the person, and you say, "I do not appreciate that. Let us keep this respectful. The room will go quiet." That silence is your power returning. Because everyone just witnessed you draw a line, and every future interaction with that person will be shaped by this moment. Some people only appear when they need something. Their calls come when they are in crisis. Their warmth arrives when they want a favor. Their attention flows toward you precisely when they require your energy, your time, your emotional labor. And when the crisis passes, when the favor is granted, they vanish. Until next time. This is not friendship. This is extraction disguised as connection. The pattern is predictable once you see it. Intensity of contact during their need. Silence during your need. Warmth that appears and disappears based entirely on what they require from you. Machiavelli observed this in political alliances. He noted that the most dangerous allies were those who were loyal only during their own difficulty, who praised you when they needed your army but forgot your name when the war was over. If this is the kind of understanding you have been searching for, a like puts it in front of someone who needs to hear it today. The test is simple. Pay attention to who reaches out when they need nothing from you. Pay attention to who asks how you are doing when they have no crisis to report. Pay attention to who shows up consistently, not just during emergencies. Those are your real people. Everyone else is a client pretending to be a friend. The boundary here is straightforward. You match energy. You give what you receive. When someone demonstrates that their interest in you is conditional on their needs, you make your availability conditional on their consistency. This is the most sophisticated form of disrespect, and it is the one most people fail to recognize as disrespect at all. Someone withdraws, they go cold, they stop responding, they create distance without explanation, and they leave you to fill the silence with your own anxiety. This is not introversion. This is not needing space. This is control through absence. Because the person who withdraws without explanation forces you into a specific position. You become the one who reaches out. You become the one who asks what is wrong. You become the one who adjusts your behavior, trying to fix something you may not have even broken. And in that dynamic, in that desperate reaching, you hand over every ounce of power you had. Machiavelli would have recognized this instantly. He wrote about rulers who used strategic withdrawal to force opponents into revealing their vulnerabilities. The one who speaks first in a silence is the one who needs the other more, and the one who needs more is the one who can be controlled. The response to weaponized silence is devastatingly simple. You match it. You do not chase. You do not send the third unanswered message. You do not craft the careful text designed to break through their wall. You sit in the silence with them, comfortably, patiently, without anxiety. Because here is what happens when you refuse to chase. The person using silence as a weapon loses their leverage. The entire tactic depends on your pursuit. Without it, the silence becomes theirs to break, and they will, because silence only has power when the other person is afraid of it. Here's what most people get wrong about all 7 of these behaviors. They think the goal is to become harder, colder, less feeling. They think that protecting yourself means building walls so high that nothing gets in. That is not what Machiavelli taught, and it is not what this is about. The real shift is this. You are not becoming less kind. You are becoming more honest. Honest about what you will accept. Honest about what your time and energy are worth. Honest about the difference between someone who respects you and someone who simply has not been given a reason to stop disrespecting you. Every boundary you enforce is an act of self-respect. Every lie you confront is a declaration of your own value. Every time you refuse to chase someone's silence or absorb someone's put-down, you are not becoming cruel. You are becoming clear. And clarity, once established, changes everything around you. Not because people suddenly become better, but because the people who were never going to respect you lose access, and the people who genuinely value you finally see that you value yourself. That is the real transformation. Not becoming feared, becoming known. Known as someone whose kindness is real, but whose tolerance has limits. Known as someone who gives generously, but does not give themselves away. Machiavelli spent his entire life watching what happens when good people fail to protect their goodness. He did not write The Prince for villains. He wrote it for people who kept losing because they confused vulnerability with virtue. You do not have to make that mistake anymore. Knowing these 7 behaviors is not enough. Recognition without action is just awareness with a fancy name. You need a practice, something you do, not just something you understand. The first practice is the 24-hour audit. For one full day, you pay attention to every interaction that leaves you feeling diminished, dismissed, or drained. You do not react in the moment. You simply notice. You write it down if you need to. At the end of the day, you look at your list and you ask one question. Which of these did I tolerate because confrontation felt harder than absorption? That list is your map. Those are the exact places where your power is leaking. Not because the world is cruel, but because you have been choosing comfort over clarity in those specific moments. The second practice is the one warning protocol. Starting now, when someone crosses a line, you address it once, clearly, without emotion, without over-explaining. You state the boundary and you state the consequence, and then you follow through. Not perfectly, you will stumble, you will hesitate, you will feel the old reflex pulling you towards silence, but you do it anyway. Because the habit of confrontation, like any habit, gets easier with repetition. The first time is the hardest, the 5th time is almost natural, the 20th time is simply who you are. The third practice is the access review. Once a month, you look at the people closest to you and you ask, does this person's behavior match the access I have given them? Are they treating my time, my energy, my boundaries with the respect that their proximity to me demands? If the answer is no, you adjust the access. You do not have to make a dramatic announcement. You simply become less available to people who have demonstrated they do not value your availability. You invest more in the people who show up consistently and respectfully. Over time, your circle gets smaller, but it also gets stronger. And that strength, that deliberate curation of who gets to be close to you, is the foundation of every form of respect you will ever receive. You started this video knowing something was wrong, feeling that familiar weight of being too available, too forgiving, too willing to absorb what should never have been yours to carry. Now you have a name for it. Now you have a framework. Now you understand that disrespect is not weather, it is architecture, and you are the architect. Machiavelli did not write for the ruthless. He wrote for the good people who kept getting destroyed because they did not understand the rules of the game they were already playing. You understand them now. The kindness you carry is not your weakness. It never was. But kindness without boundaries is an invitation, and you are done sending invitations to people who show up only to take. Starting today, you enforce what you value. You confront what diminishes you. You walk away from what refuses to respect you. Not because you are hard, because you are finally clear. Subscribe if you want to keep going. There is more of this waiting, and it goes deeper every time. The respect you are looking for was never something anyone else could give you. It was always something you had to stop giving away. Thank you for being here. I will see you in the next one.